A person who is in a persistent state of rage is unstable. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. So I had done a post yesterday on rage, and this person here wrote, I don't think rage is instability. We need our rage. I think it's important to clarify rage for the purpose of control and not rage in self-defense. So when you're in a persistent state of extreme anger or fury, you do lose the ability to think rationally. Now, if you have fleeting rage, which I think you're talking about, trying to defend yourself. That's a little bit different. But a person that's in a persistent state, which is what I was talking about yesterday when I was talking about domestic abusers, when you have a persistent state of rage, and rage is your default emotion all the time, you are unstable. Even from a victim mindset, if you are a victim and your default is rage, there is a pattern of instability there. That's my clinical experience. You may have your own sort of clinical experience, but usually now you can have what I call loud rage versus quiet rage. With loud rage, that's typically what you see with abusers, which is where they're angry. They're gonna take everybody prisoner and hostage. They're gonna be throwing things. They're gonna be hitting things. It's going to be manifesting outwardly. There's not going to be any sort of mistake or misunderstanding in terms of how that person feels, and they're definitely gonna take it out. You're gonna see it. You can also have what I call quiet rage, which is what a lot of victims feel. And having worked with victims of sexual abuse or domestic violence and all that for a number of years now, they can have quiet rage. Even when rage is quiet, there is a pattern of instability. And it's going to manifest a little bit differently, but it's still going to be there. So Sigmund Freud said that rage turned inward is depression. And a lot of times that's how I see it manifested in victims. Victims typically internalize and compartmentalize their anger, their rage, their frustration, all their negative emotions. They typically internalize that out of survival and to try and get through their situation. However, it will manifest in different ways in which you see even quietly. So that can manifest in terms of being, for example, suicidal, where I want to take myself out, and I actively do try and take myself out. It could be in the form of self-harm, so cutting, burning oneself, restriction of food intake, so disordered eating, where a victim is they emotionally cope through their relationship with food or lack thereof. It can also look like self-sabotage, so intentionally sabotaging self through a variety of ways. Now, I don't know you, but I do know a lot of the victims that I've worked with over the years. There is going to be a manifestation. And a lot of times, if you have the symptoms of depression, which is rage turned inward, it's going to typically manifest in forms of self-deprivation. And people may think that they are functioning when they have quiet rage, but they're not. They just have. They said, "Oh, I can go to work," and but it still manifests. There could be quick flashes of anger, lashing out, other ways in which it can manifest. And for clarification, I did talk about rage in terms of control yesterday, but when you're talking about self-defense, usually that's not necessarily rage per se, but it's self-defense. Like, I have to get out, I have to fight for survival, I'm going to get you back. And so it's life or death. That is usually a fleeting emotion and not something, unless you're in an abusive relationship, like I was just referencing. If it's something you experience every day, that is instability. You're in an abusive relationship, that is instability. No matter which way you slice it and cut it, that is instability. But if you're trying to get out of a momentary situation of danger, that's like an isolated incident, that's, I think, goes without question, that's something entirely different. But rage, consistent rage, is instability. Irrational thinking is usually involved in that. There can be a lack of self-awareness. Not always. There can certainly be some exceptions, but by and large, that's what I've seen clinically. Thanks so much for putting this out there. Hope that helps. Like, comment, follow, and share.